She spent 34 years asking permission to exist in her own life, until the day she decided to stop knocking. Maya had been living her life like she was a guest in her own home. Every morning she would knock softly on her teenage daughter's bedroom door, even though it was her house. She would apologize before speaking up in grocery store lines, even when someone cut in front of her. At work she waited for others to finish talking, even when she had the perfect solution to the problem they were discussing. At 34, Maya worked as a marketing assistant at one of the city's top advertising companies. She had been there for 8 years, watching people half her age get promoted while she stayed in the same small desk by the window. Her coworkers liked her well enough. They always came to her when they needed something done right, when they needed someone reliable. But when it came time for recognition or advancement, somehow her name never came up in those important conversations. Her daily routine was as predictable as sunrise. She arrived at the office 15 minutes early, made coffee for the break room, and organized her desk before anyone else showed up. She brought homemade cookies for office birthdays and stayed late to help with last-minute projects. Maya thought if she just worked harder, if she was just more helpful, eventually someone would notice her dedication. The truth was, Maya had become invisible by choice. She had perfected the art of blending into the background. In meetings, she would prepare thoughtful comments but rarely share them. When she did speak, it was usually to agree with someone else or to ask if her idea was okay. She had trained herself to take up as little space as possible, believing this was what good people did. Her marriage to Robert had settled into something comfortable but distant. They were more like roommates who happened to share the same last name. They ate dinner together while scrolling through their phones. They slept in the same bed but barely touched. Maya told herself this was normal, that this was what happened after 15 years of marriage. Deep down, she knew they had both stopped trying to really see each other years ago. Maya's mother called every Sunday to check in, but these calls always left Maya feeling smaller somehow. Her mother had opinions about everything Maya did, from her choice of career to the way she was raising her daughter. Maya had learned long ago that it was easier to agree than to defend her choices. She would nod along to suggestions she didn't want to follow, and advice that didn't fit her life. Even with her own daughter, Maya found herself asking permission. She would suggest family activities with phrases like, "Would it be okay if we went to the movies?" instead of simply planning fun things to do together. Her daughter, Lily, had started rolling her eyes at Maya's constant need for approval, though Maya didn't understand why. The morning that changed everything started like any other Tuesday. Maya arrived early, made the coffee, and settled at her desk with her usual quiet efficiency. She had been working on a campaign proposal for weeks, staying late and coming in on weekends to perfect every detail. Her supervisor had hinted strongly that if the proposal went well, there might be a promotion in Maya's future. Maya had allowed herself to dream a little. Maybe this was finally her moment. Maybe all those years of patient work were about to pay off. She had even started looking at apartments closer to downtown, thinking about the raise that might come with a better position. The email arrived at exactly 9:47 a.m. Maya saw it pop up in her inbox with the subject line, "Congratulations, team." Her heart started beating faster as she opened it. The company was pleased to announce that Tom Rodriguez would be taking over the senior marketing coordinator position, effective immediately. The same position Maya had been promised. The same campaign she had been working on was now Tom's responsibility. Maya stared at the screen, reading the email 3 times before the words really sank in. Tom had been with the company for less than 2 years. He was confident and loud and had a habit of taking credit for other people's ideas. Maya had actually helped him with several projects, staying late to fix his mistakes and cover for his shortcuts. She looked around the office and saw her co-workers congratulating Tom. He was standing by the coffee machine, accepting handshakes and pats on the back, grinning like he had won the lottery. Maya watched him for a long moment, and something inside her chest felt like it was breaking apart. For the first time in years, Maya felt angry. Not the quiet, swallowed-down frustration she was used to, but real burning anger that made her hands shake as she typed. She had given this company 8 years of her life. She had been loyal and hardworking and dependable. She had made everyone else's job easier while making her own life smaller and smaller. Maya stood up from her desk and walked to the bathroom, locking the door behind her. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. When had she become so invisible? When had she decided that her dreams mattered less than everyone else's comfort? She thought about her daughter, about the example she was setting. Lily was growing up watching her mother apologize for existing, asking permission to live her own life. Maya realized with a shock that she didn't want her daughter to become the same kind of woman she had become. Standing in that small bathroom, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She was done asking permission. She was done making herself smaller so others could feel bigger. She was done knocking on doors in her own life. The woman who walked back to her desk that morning was still Maya, but something fundamental had shifted inside her. She didn't know exactly what she was going to do next, but for the first time in years, she knew she was going to do something. 3 weeks after the promotion incident, Maya found herself packing a small suitcase for the company's annual retreat. Every year, the entire office would spend a weekend at a mountain resort, supposedly for team building and planning. Maya usually dreaded these events. They meant more opportunities to feel invisible, more situations where she would smile politely while others took center stage. This year felt different, though. Ever since that morning in the bathroom mirror, Maya had been noticing things she had ignored before. She saw how Tom took credit for her ideas in meetings. She noticed how her supervisor would ask her to handle the difficult clients, but never mentioned her name when those clients praised the work. She realized that being helpful had somehow made her forgettable. The resort was beautiful, nestled between tall pine trees with a view of snow-capped mountains. Maya had been assigned to room with the company's new creative director, a woman named Alex who had joined the team just 3 months ago. Alex was everything Maya wasn't. She spoke up in meetings, asked for what she wanted, and somehow managed to be both professional and completely herself at the same time. Maya had barely spoken to Alex beyond polite hellos in the hallway. She assumed Alex saw her the same way everyone else did, as part of the office furniture. So when Alex greeted her with genuine warmth and started chatting about the beautiful drive up to the resort, Maya was surprised by how easy it felt to talk with her. The first day was filled with the usual team-building activities: trust falls, problem-solving games, and group discussions about company goals. Maya participated quietly, offering suggestions when asked but mostly staying in the background. She watched Alex navigate these activities with confidence, never afraid to speak up or take charge when needed. That evening, there was a formal dinner planned with all the company executives. Maya had brought her usual conservative dress, something that would help her blend in with the crowd. She was getting ready quietly when Alex returned to their shared room, looking frustrated and tired. "These corporate events are exhausting," Alex said, kicking off her shoes and sitting heavily on her bed. "Sometimes I wonder if anyone actually listens to what we're saying or if they're just checking boxes." Maya was surprised by Alex's honesty. Most people kept their real feelings hidden at company events. "The activities can be pretty intense," Maya agreed carefully. Alex laughed, but not in a mean way. "You're being diplomatic. They're mostly pointless, aren't they? All this talk about teamwork, but half the people here are trying to figure out how to climb over each other to get ahead." For the next hour, as they both got ready for dinner, Alex talked openly about her previous job, her struggles with anxiety, and how she had learned to speak up for herself after years of being overlooked. Maya found herself sharing more than she had planned, telling Alex about her 8 years with the company and how she sometimes felt like she was invisible. "You know what I've learned?" Alex said, adjusting her dress in the mirror. "The world doesn't actually end when you stop asking permission for everything. I used to apologize for taking up space, for having opinions, for just existing sometimes, but nobody else was looking out for my interests, so I had to learn to do it myself." Maya watched Alex get ready with a confidence she had never seen up close before. There was something refreshing about being around someone who wasn't constantly second-guessing herself. Alex didn't apologize for taking time to fix her hair or for choosing a dress that actually looked good on her instead of one that helped her disappear. At dinner, Maya sat at a table with Alex and several colleagues, including Tom, who was already enjoying the attention that came with his new position. The conversation turned to upcoming projects, and Maya listened as Tom outlined his vision for the campaign she had originally developed. "That's interesting," Alex said suddenly, looking directly at Maya. "Didn't you mention you had been working on something similar? What was your approach?" Maya felt everyone's eyes turn to her. Normally, this would have made her want to disappear, to deflect attention back to someone else. But something about Alex's encouraging expression gave her courage. Maya found herself explaining her original ideas, the research she had done, the strategy she had developed. As she talked, she noticed people listening, really listening. Tom's face grew uncomfortable as Maya's explanation made it clear how much of his campaign had actually been her work. But instead of backing down or apologizing for speaking up, Maya kept talking. She felt a strange new sensation, like a part of herself that had been sleeping was finally waking up. Later that night, back in their room, Alex was getting ready for bed when she said something that would stay with Maya forever. "You know, you're much more interesting than you pretend to be. I wonder why you work so hard to make yourself invisible." Maya lay awake long after Alex had fallen asleep, thinking about that question. Why did she make herself invisible? When had she decided that being small was safer than being seen? She thought about her daughter, about the example she was setting. She thought about all the ideas she had kept to herself, all the opportunities she had let slip by because she was waiting for permission that would never come. For the first time in years, Maya began to imagine what her life might look like if she stopped asking permission to live it. The Monday after the retreat, Maya walked into the office building with a different energy. She didn't know exactly what had changed, but something inside her felt more awake, more present. Instead of rushing to make the coffee for everyone, she went straight to her desk and started working on her own projects. The first test came during the weekly team meeting. Maya had prepared notes about a potential client issue she had identified, something that could save the company thousands of dollars if addressed early. Normally, she would have mentioned it quietly to her supervisor after the meeting, if at all. But this time, when the appropriate moment came, Maya cleared her throat and spoke up. "I've been reviewing the Henderson account, and I think we might have a problem brewing," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The room turned to look at her, and instead of shrinking back, Maya continued, "If we adjust our approach now, we can prevent what could become a major issue later." Her supervisor looked surprised but interested. Maya outlined her concerns and suggested solutions, speaking clearly and confidently. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before several people nodded approvingly. Tom looked annoyed, but Maya realized she didn't care what Tom thought anymore. The real changes started small but felt enormous to Maya. She stopped apologizing before every email. She bought coffee for herself instead of always making it for others. When a coworker asked her to stay late to fix their mistake, Maya politely declined, explaining that she had her own deadlines to meet. At home, the changes were even more noticeable. Maya stopped knocking on doors in her own house. When her daughter Lily asked what was for dinner, Maya suggested they decide together instead of frantically trying to guess what everyone wanted. When Robert complained about the grocery choices, Maya simply said she had bought what she liked and he was welcome to add items to the list for next time. Her mother noticed the difference during their Sunday phone call. "You sound different, Maya. Are you feeling all right? You're not being very agreeable today." Maya paused, realizing that agreeable had become code for invisible. "I'm feeling better than I have in years. Actually," she said, and meant it. The biggest test came 6 weeks after the retreat. Maya had been researching other companies in the area, not because she was definitely planning to leave, but because she wanted to understand her options. When she saw a job posting for a senior marketing position at a competing firm, something inside her stirred. The old Maya would have looked at the requirements and convinced herself she wasn't qualified. She would have thought about applying but never actually done it. But the new Maya, the one who was learning to take up space in her own life, decided to take a chance. She worked on her application for 3 evenings, crafting a cover letter that highlighted her achievements instead of downplaying them. For the first time in years, Maya wrote about herself as someone valuable, someone with skills and experience worth recognizing. It felt strange and exciting to describe herself this way. The interview process moved quickly. Maya found herself sitting across from a panel of executives, preparing to present a marketing strategy she had developed. Her heart was pounding, but it was the good kind of nervous energy, the kind that meant she was doing something that mattered. 10 minutes before her presentation was supposed to start, the elevator broke down between floors. Maya and 2 other candidates found themselves stuck for 30 minutes, emerging just as the interview panel was considering rescheduling everyone for another day. The old Maya would have apologized profusely, explained about the elevator, and asked if they could possibly reschedule. She would have been mortified by her slightly wrinkled clothes and windblown hair. But standing outside that conference room, Maya made a choice. She smoothed down her hair, straightened her jacket, and walked into the room with her head held high. "Good morning," she said with a genuine smile. Sometimes the most interesting presentations come from unexpected beginnings. Instead of apologizing for the delay, Maya used those 30 minutes in the elevator as part of her presentation. She talked about how good teams adapt to challenges, how the best solutions often come from situations that force you to think differently. She turned a potential disaster into a demonstration of grace under pressure. The presentation itself went better than Maya had ever imagined possible. She spoke with confidence about her ideas, answered questions directly without hedging, and made eye contact with each panel member as she explained her vision for their company's growth. When they asked about her experience, Maya didn't minimize her 8 years at her current job or make excuses for staying in the same position. Instead, she talked about the depth of knowledge she had gained, the relationships she had built, and the results she had achieved, even when others had received the credit. 3 days later, Maya received a phone call offering her the position. The salary was nearly double what she was making, and they wanted her to start as soon as possible. As Maya hung up the phone, she realized she was crying, but they were tears of relief and joy, not sadness. That evening, she called Alex to share the news. "I'm so proud of you," Alex said. "You finally stopped asking permission to be yourself." Maya looked around her kitchen, where she was making dinner that she actually wanted to eat, planning to tell her family about changes that would affect all of them, preparing to step into a life that felt authentically hers for the first time in years. She had learned something important over the past few months. Confidence wasn't something you were born with or without. It was something you built one small, brave act at a time. Every time she spoke up instead of staying silent, every time she took up space instead of shrinking, every time she acted like she belonged somewhere, she was building the muscles she needed to create the life she actually wanted. The woman who had spent years knocking on doors in her own life was finally learning to walk through them like she owned the place. Starting her new job felt like stepping into a completely different world. Maya's new office had a window that looked out over the city, and for the first time in her career, she had her own assistant. The company had hired her specifically to lead their biggest campaign of the year, a project worth millions of dollars that would determine whether they could compete with the major agencies in town. Maya's first week was a whirlwind of meetings, introductions, and learning new systems. Her team consisted of 6 people, most of whom had been with the company longer than she had been in her previous job. She could sense some of them were skeptical about the new boss, especially since she had come from a smaller agency and was now telling them how to do their jobs. During her second week, Maya discovered the real challenge she was facing. The campaign she had been hired to lead was behind schedule, over budget, and the client was already expressing concerns about the direction. Her predecessor had left suddenly, and nobody seemed to have a clear vision for how to move forward. Maya spent her first weekend in the new job reviewing every piece of research, every creative brief, every budget spreadsheet. She realized that the campaign was failing because it was trying to be everything to everyone. The message was confusing, the target audience was too broad, and the creative elements didn't work together. On Monday morning, Maya called a team meeting. She could see the doubt in her colleagues' faces as she outlined the problems with the current approach. When she finished explaining what needed to change, the room was quiet for a long moment. "That's a pretty major overhaul," said Jason, the senior designer who had been working on the campaign for months. "Are you sure the client will go for something this different?" Maya felt the old familiar urge to back down, to suggest they keep things the way they were to avoid conflict. But she also knew that playing it safe would mean watching the campaign fail, and probably losing her job in the process. "I think the client hired us to solve their problem, not to make them feel comfortable," Maya said. "If we're going to do this, we need to do it right." The next 3 weeks were intense. Maya worked closely with each team member, rebuilding the campaign from the ground up. She discovered that several people on her team had brilliant ideas they had never shared because they didn't think anyone would listen. Maya made sure everyone's voice was heard, and slowly, the team began to trust her leadership. The real test came on the day of the big client presentation. Maya had been preparing for weeks, but she felt confident about the new direction they had developed together. The presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m. at the client's downtown office building. Maya and her team arrived at the building with 15 minutes to spare, which should have been plenty of time. But as they stepped into the elevator with all their materials, the building's power flickered and went out completely. The elevator stopped between the 3rd and 4th floors, and the emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie glow. "This can't be happening," whispered Kate, the account manager, as she checked her phone. "The presentation starts in 10 minutes. Maya felt her heart start to race, but not with panic. This was exactly the kind of situation that would have sent the old Maya into a spiral of apologies and self-doubt. But the woman standing in that elevator was different. She had learned something important over the past few months about how to handle unexpected challenges. "Okay," Maya said calmly. "Let's think about this. The power will come back on eventually. And when it does, we'll get out of here and give the best presentation we can. In the meantime, let's use this time to run through our key points one more time." For the next 20 minutes, while building maintenance worked to restore power, Maya and her team practiced their presentation in the dim emergency lighting. When the elevator finally reached the lobby, they were 40 minutes late, but they were also more prepared than they had ever been. Maya led her team into the client's conference room, where 8 executives were sitting around a polished table, looking skeptical and checking their watches. The old Maya would have spent the first 5 minutes apologizing and explaining about the elevator. Instead, Maya walked to the front of the room, set down her materials, and smiled genuinely at the group. "Good afternoon, everyone. Sometimes the best ideas come from the most unexpected places, and we just spent 20 minutes in an elevator discovering something important about your campaign." She used the elevator experience as an opening story, talking about how being stuck in a small space with limited resources had forced them to focus on what was truly essential. It was a perfect metaphor for what their campaign needed to do: cut through all the noise and focus on the core message that would really connect with customers. The presentation that followed was the best work Maya had ever done. She spoke with confidence and passion about the strategy they had developed. When the executives asked challenging questions, Maya answered them directly and thoroughly. When they pushed back on certain elements, she listened carefully and explained her reasoning without getting defensive. By the end of the hour, the room's energy had completely changed. The client executives were leaning forward, asking detailed questions about implementation and timeline. They loved the new direction and wanted to move forward immediately. As Maya and her team walked back to their office, Kate shook her head in amazement. "I can't believe you turned being stuck in an elevator into part of the presentation. That was incredible." Maya realized something important as she listened to her team's excited chatter about the successful meeting. She had finally learned to see challenges as opportunities instead of disasters. More importantly, she had learned to trust herself enough to lead others through difficult situations. That evening, Maya called Robert to tell him about the successful presentation. For the first time in months, he sounded genuinely interested in her work, asking questions about the campaign and congratulating her on the win. "You sound different," he said. "Happier. More like the person I married." Maya realized he was right. She was becoming more like herself than she had been in years. Not by changing who she was, but by finally letting herself be who she had always been, underneath all those layers of doubt and people-pleasing. 1 year later, Maya was sitting in her office reviewing applications for a new junior position when she came across a resume that made her pause. The applicant had excellent qualifications, but something about the overly apologetic cover letter reminded Maya of herself just 2 years ago. The letter was full of phrases like, "I hope you'll consider me and I would be grateful for the opportunity," instead of confidently stating what the applicant could bring to the company. Maya decided to interview the candidate personally. When Beth arrived for the interview, Maya saw her younger self walking through the door. Beth was clearly intelligent and well prepared, but she apologized for everything, from being 2 minutes early to the sound her portfolio made when she set it on the table. During the interview, Maya watched Beth downplay her achievements and qualify every statement with uncertainty. When Maya asked about her biggest professional accomplishment, Beth described an impressive project but spent most of the time explaining how she couldn't have done it without help from others. "Tell me about a time when you had to advocate for an idea you believed in," Maya asked. Beth looked uncomfortable. "Well, I had an idea once for improving our social media strategy, but I wasn't sure if it was good enough to share. I mentioned it to my supervisor, but she was pretty busy, so I didn't push it." Maya made her decision right then. This young woman had potential, but more importantly, she needed someone to show her how to use it. After offering Beth the position, Maya found herself taking on an unexpected role as mentor. She began having weekly coffee meetings with Beth, sharing not just work advice but life lessons about confidence and self-advocacy. "I used to apologize for taking up space," Maya told Beth during one of their conversations. "I thought being helpful meant being invisible. But you can't help anyone if you don't help yourself first." Maya started assigning Beth to higher-profile projects and encouraging her to share her ideas in team meetings. When Beth would start to apologize before speaking, Maya would gently interrupt and ask her to try again without the apology. The changes in Beth were gradual but noticeable. She started speaking up more in meetings, stopped apologizing for having opinions, and began presenting her work with pride instead of uncertainty. Maya watched Beth's transformation with a mixture of pride and recognition, remembering her own journey from invisible to essential. Meanwhile, Maya's personal life had undergone its own transformation. Her relationship with Robert had improved dramatically once Maya stopped being the woman who agreed with everything and started being the woman he had originally fallen in love with. They began having real conversations again, sharing their thoughts and dreams instead of just coordinating schedules. Maya's relationship with her daughter Lily had changed too. Instead of asking permission for family activities, Maya started planning adventures and inviting Lily to join her. They took weekend trips to nearby cities, tried new restaurants, and had honest conversations about everything from school to future plans. "Mom, you're so much more fun than you used to be," Lily said one Saturday as they were hiking a mountain trail together. "You used to act like you needed permission to do anything." Maya laughed, realizing how accurate that observation was. "I guess I finally figured out that life is too short to spend it waiting for other people to tell you it's okay to live it." The company's annual retreat came around again, and this year Maya was attending as a senior executive, not as someone hoping to blend into the background. The retreat was being held at the same mountain resort where she had met Alex 2 years earlier. On the first night, Maya found herself sitting next to a young intern named David, who reminded her of Beth in his eagerness to please and reluctance to share his ideas. During dinner, Maya watched him defer to everyone else's opinions and apologize for comments that were actually quite insightful. After dinner, Maya approached David. "Can I give you some advice?" she asked. "You have good ideas. Stop apologizing for them." David looked surprised. "I just don't want to seem pushy or arrogant." "There's a big difference between being confident and being arrogant," Maya said. "Confident people share their ideas because they want to contribute. Arrogant people share their ideas because they want to dominate. You're definitely not arrogant." The next morning, Maya was scheduled to give the keynote address to the entire company. As she stood at the podium looking out at the audience, she spotted Alex in the third row, smiling encouragingly. Beth was sitting near the front looking nervous but excited. David the intern was in the back, sitting up straight and paying attention. Maya thought about the woman she had been when she first attended this retreat 2 years ago. That woman would never have imagined standing at this podium, let alone feeling comfortable speaking to a room full of colleagues and executives. 2 years ago, I sat in this same room feeling invisible, Maya began, her voice clear and confident. I had spent most of my career waiting for permission to contribute, permission to lead, permission to take up space in my own life. She talked about her journey from invisible to essential, about learning the difference between being helpful and being invisible, about discovering that confidence wasn't something you were born with, but something you built through small acts of courage. "The most radical thing you can do," Maya said, looking directly at David and then at Beth, "is decide that you belong wherever you are, not because someone gave you permission, but because you have value to offer and the right to offer it." As Maya spoke, she noticed people in the audience sitting up straighter, nodding in recognition of their own struggles with confidence and self-advocacy. She saw Beth smiling with understanding, and David taking notes like his career depended on it. After the presentation, people approached Maya with their own stories of learning to find their voice, of overcoming the need to apologize for existing, of discovering that taking up space wasn't selfish but necessary. Alex was among the first to congratulate her. "Look at you," she said with genuine pride. "You've become the person you were always meant to be." That evening, Maya called her mother for their weekly conversation. For the first time in months, her mother didn't criticize her choices or offer unsolicited advice. Instead, she said something that surprised Maya completely. "I've been thinking about our conversations lately, and I realize I may have taught you to make yourself too small," her mother said. "I was trying to protect you from disappointment, but I think I may have protected you from success instead. I'm proud of who you've become." As Maya hung up the phone, she realized her transformation was complete. Not because she had changed into someone different, but because she had finally learned to be fully herself. The woman who used to knock on doors in her own life had learned not just to enter without knocking, but to hold the door open for others who were still learning to find their own way in. Looking back, Maya understood that confidence wasn't about never feeling uncertain or afraid. It was about feeling those things and moving forward anyway. About believing that your voice deserved to be heard and your dreams deserved to be pursued. She had learned the most important lesson of all, that the permission she had spent years waiting for could only come from one person, and that person had been looking back at her in the mirror all along.